Hi, everybody, and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm T.
And I'm Blondie.
And in honor of Reignited Sparklers July, we are reintroducing this early episode. I loved this particular story because Blondie shared not only her own experiences at this location, but some really crazy haunted history too. And I've been to this location as well, and yes, it is super creepy, but we still had a lot of fun with this one.
Yes, we did. And T is right. I had some strange personal experiences at this property. I used to hear about the ghost stories and thought they were, tall tales. Well, that was until I had my own encounters. Learning the history and its haunted past was exciting. So let me introduce, again, Rancho Los Amigos Haunted Asylum.
Hi, everybody. I'm T. Already laughing.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Blondie, dimwit extraordinaire.
Okay, she's really running with this whole...
Yes, I'm taking it, and I am literally going to go because jazz hands and all.
Why jazz hands?
Because extraordinaire.
Oh.
Welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. This episode is going to be something that's close to my heart because it takes place in my hometown. Place that actually weirded me out for quite a long time. When I was little, I'd hear stories, and then when I grew up, I would literally have to drive by there.
Wait a minute. You grew up? Did I miss that part?
Don't hate. Don't hate.
Extraordinaire.
Yes. How could I not grow up if I wasn't extraordinaire? Smart Alex. So yes, I used to drive by there during the day and at night, so it made it even more intense.
But why'd you have to drive by there so much? You just wanted to?
No. Yeah, I was bored. I wanted
a little
to scare,
freak looky-loo?
I wanted to scare myself. No, I was part of a city organization that held events and did fundraising and things like that, and part of where we would meet was on this particular property. Ultimately, I think it was 600 acres, so I would have to drive by the haunted areas.
Ooh.
I think I can make a sound effect for that.
I just did. You're welcome.
Delete.
delete, erase.
Okay, so let's get our grim on.
Let the grim. This one actually sounds better for your story because I'm going to say it in a spooky voice. Let the grim begin.
No. Because it's my story, I get to say, let's get our grim on.
All right, go ahead.
So, this was established in 1887 as the Country Poor Farm and ultimately to be known as Rancho Los Amigos, South Campus in Downey. The facility opened in December 1888.
Now, when you say Downey, we want to make sure that people know this is Downey, California. Well, hey, there could be other Downeys in the U.S. You don't know.
But that would make us more mysterious, them trying to find out where Downey is.
Well, we've already told them we're from California, so you know what?
All
Give
right.
them all the info.
Bag and cat has been tossed out already. It was originally designed as an agricultural facility that provided work, housing, medical care for poor and indigent. It was a place where officials tried to steer derelicts back onto the right track. The bums, as they called them at the time.
I miss it when we used to call people bums. It was easier. There's too many names now.
Help me. Somebody help me. These were men who had problems with the bottle and whose cure was a few sober weeks on the farm. These able-bodied indigents whose labor offset the cost of their food and care would also become caretakers. Built with bond money, the original 124 acres consisted of buildings such as an aviary, offices, common areas, a post office, and wards for both men and women, who were called inmates at the time.
Wow, that makes you feel welcome.
By 1902, there had been nothing but positive comments by the General Federation of Women's Clubs saying it was a good combination of charity and industry. However, a year later, the overcrowding and lack of sanitation became a concern.
Yuck, that sounds gross.
Well, I guess it would become a concern then, wouldn't it? In 1906, more land was obtained, bringing it to 330 acres, and a remodel begun. A chapel and psychiatric ward were explicitly built for medical purposes. It was eventually known as an asylum.
Doesn't that word always make you feel like a scary movie is about to go?
It does. It honestly does. You just have people like it behind bars just screaming.
Some crazy-faced old lady just being like, ah.
Were you in an asylum?
I should be. I could be.
Sorry, it was right there. I had to take it.
I know, and I set her right up for it.
Right?
My bad.
The facility had begun shifting its role to a medical facility due to a large influx in residents with chronic medical disorders in 1910. The atmosphere wasn't at all harmonious, which caused some residents to commit suicide, which prompted an investigation over the treatment of the residents.
I like how you say the atmosphere wasn't harmonious. It must have been real bad. That's a really nice way of saying
I was sugarcoating.
it was real bad.
I was sugarcoating. Over the following decades, the facility was renamed Rancho Los Amigos, and the inmates were now called patients. The property increased to almost 600 acres, and the patients increased to over 2,700 from the original 170 when it opened in 1888.
That's a humongous increase.
They kept expanding because they had more patients.
Wow.
For a variety of different reasons. As they continued to build and expand, the facility built a laundry building with tunnels that flowed under the streets and the other buildings to move laundry, etc. And in 1928, an auditorium was constructed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
My question felt so welcomed.
Yeah.
Are the tunnels under the street still there? Does anybody know?
I believe so.
Oh, now that would be interesting.
I believe so.
I'd be down for that on Halloween Eve.
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, come on.
No.
That just sounds super creepy.
Where do you think they put the sanitation issues?
But it's part of the asylum.
It is part of the asylum. So an interesting story about the auditorium. When I was younger and working with the organizations in the city, we used to hold practices for events in this same auditorium. And I remember thinking that it was actually pretty, which it really was. It was green and pink. It was really pretty, very, I don't know what the word is. The architecture was very...
Oh, you know me. I love some old architecture.
Oh, yeah,
I'm all about it.
The architecture was beautiful on this building. It was just amazing, but everything around it was falling apart at this point.
Mm.
We were always one of the last to leave, so from the time of turning off the lights and us getting to the car, I couldn't walk fast enough. The vibe was very heavy and had that feeling like someone was watching you and they were always present.
Did you feel that way while you were in the building during your activities or only when you turned the lights out?
It was only when we turned the lights out because there were so many people during the activities, during the practices and things that it was distracting. So
safety in numbers.
Yeah, basically. So you didn't really have a chance to stop and think of what's going on because you're just busy doing other things.
Right.
So this hospital treated patients during the Spanish flu epidemic along with polio patients. They developed the halo for patients with neck and spinal injuries, which is still in use today.
So when you say developed, was it developed there?
It was developed there. From everything I read, it was developed.
That's super interesting.
It is very interesting.
Wow.
And
so this was actually, pretty big facility if they were able to build stuff like that.
It was top of their kind at the time.
Uh-huh.
So they would perform tracheotomies on them or a tracheotomy on them so that they were able to breathe once they were out of the chamber
Okay.
for brief periods of time. I did read a story about a person that actually was in an iron lung at this hospital, and because he's on his back, they put a mirror above him and a book behind him, and he learned how to read backwards. That was all there was to do, so he read backwards, which I think that would be interesting, but how hard would it be to read forwards once you've trained your brain to read the other way?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, determination for sure, but
determination.
Very cool. That's very cool.
A neighboring field, also known as Potter's Field, was for patients that had passed away and went unclaimed. They were buried here in paupers' graves. In 1914, there was a terrible flood that washed away some of the caskets, so they had to be relocated. However, no one is sure where that is. During this time, they also started cremating them, and I believe there are urns still buried there today.
I didn't even know, this is going to sound really dumb, I didn't even know people buried urns.
I didn't either until I read this, as opposed to putting them in a wall. I mean, that's where they normally go.
You just put it in the ground?
Yeah.
Huh.
There's a man that is saying there's like 5,600 urns buried in this area, and they want to know where they're going to put them, but they don't have the records to find out exactly who's in there. They didn't keep records at that point.
Wow, that's crazy. I just learned something brand new today.
It's all about the new things we learn every day.
Right?
The Long Beach earthquake in 1933 damaged most of the buildings, and a tent city was set up. People were distraught because they lost everything. Now, there was a secretary named Grace Wagner, 35, who would listen to people's tales, and it upset her so much, it wreaked havoc on her nerves, that one day she couldn't take it anymore. She became hysterical and leaped out of the office window, falling to her death.
Oh my goodness. And she was just a staff person there?
She was the secretary, I believe, to the director.
Oh my goodness.
After World War II, the farming had stopped due to residents not being able to work. In the 1950s, the North Campus was opened across Imperial Highway and is a very prominent rehabilitation hospital today.
Interesting. What do they focus on in that rehab hospital? Do you know?
It's a little bit of everything.
Okay, like a physical therapy kind of thing?
Physical therapy. People spend a long time in there.
Okay.
One of the stories I read of the rehabilitation in the South Campus, some man, something had happened to him. He couldn't open his hand. He couldn't move his hand. And they stuck a sanding block in his hand and had him sand for hours a day to work the muscles, get his hand back into working order.
I think I saw that in Karate Kid. Wax on, wax off.
It was not in Karate Kid. No.
It's not an original idea. That's all I'm saying.
Somehow, I think this was in the before 1950, so Karate Kid's not that old. Chica. So the story of the South Campus closing, or at least one of the stories, goes like this. One morning, after the hospital priest finished Mass, where the mental patients were in a room surrounded with iron bars, a patient had begged the priest for confession. Obliging, the priest requested the guard leave him and the patient alone. Once the guards left, the patient pulled out a pocket knife from his pocket and viciously slashed the priest's throat. The patient took the priest's keys, proceeded to open the door, letting all the patients that attended the Mass escape. Running through the buildings, the patients began to destroy the facility. The staff of doctors, security, and nurses couldn't control the patients, who found their way into some nearby houses. This is a story of what could have possibly led to the beginning of the closing. However, my belief is that the buildings were 75 to 100 years old and falling apart, so once they opened the brand new North Campus, it was too costly to repair the South Campus. Once they opened the new campus, the old facility was used for storage, but eventually closed in 1988. When it was closed, everything was left behind. Medical records, medical supplies, furniture, etc.
I can't believe they left medical records behind. And are the medical records still there?
I did see one YouTube video from a couple years ago, and she actually did pick up a medical record from somebody from 1971. And she was reading it on YouTube.
Reading a medical record on YouTube?
Yeah.
And 71's not that old.
No.
That person might still be around.
I think in the medical record, it was a man and he was 20.
That's crazy. You can't do that. There's so many HIPAA laws. That's insane. That's a total invasion of privacy.
HIPAA laws now are one thing. What were they like in 1988?
Well, there was no HIPAA back then.
Well, there you go.
But still, use your head.
I don't care about the desks and the medical supplies and things like that, but why wouldn't you at least box up those things and take them to the North Campus?
I mean, and if it was an asylum at one point, I mean, there's going to be a lot of personal information in there. That's insane.
There was.
So it makes you wonder, why aren't people going back for those medical records? Are they scared? Is there something going on there?
I don't know. I mean, it could be that a lot of the people that were there, I'm going to speculate, so I'm not going to say it.
Speculate. It's our show. We can do what we want.
So I'm going to speculate that possibly a lot of those people may have passed. So what is the point? And they don't need them now.
Yeah, I don't know. Seems kind of disrespectful, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. The South Campus is currently in disrepair and is gated. This, however, doesn't stop strange things and sightings from happening. A few years back, there was a group of 4 that went exploring the facility when they came across a man walking down one of the streets. They stopped to talk to him, and he asked for directions. They made a U-turn, and when they came around, the man was gone. YouTube is a great resource for, well, everything. So I did, as I was saying earlier, I did watch a YouTube video of a couple that went to Rancho at night, because that seems to be when it's the ghosting hour.
Because, they must have really been bored.
Right. As they walked through the building, their K2 meter flashed indicating paranormal activity on top of hearing disembodied voices and tapping. Their other meter, Ovilus 3, aka Ghost Dictionary, went off translating sounds into words like run, pray, and Tom.
I think it's weird that it's run. Why run? And pray.
They had another piece of equipment that showed actual activity on the monitor. Personally, I saw this. It looked like a stick figure dancing.
There's just someone back there.
Right. Dancing.
With some popsicle sticks, scaring the hell out of everybody.
Some skinny man. So I had to look up this K2 meter and the Ovilus to see what exactly they do. Apparently, there are companies that specialize in ghost hunting equipment. However, you can get the K2 meter at, tell me T.
Okay, at first I had no idea what you were talking about, but now I'm going to take a wild guess and say Amazon.
Because you can buy everything at Amazon.
I do buy everything at Amazon. I'm embarrassed to say.
I'm not embarrassed to say.
Well, it's like, okay, I could be just a little bit more particular, I suppose, but they have everything.
Well, and seriously, you get in your car, drive around, waste your gas and your time, and not find what you need exactly anyway.
I keep telling my husband that this saves us money because I'm not in a store. What do they call it? Buying on a
whim.
No, but it's something else.
Impulse buying.
Impulse buying. I'm not at a store impulse buying. So thank Amazon every time they show up with the one thing I actually needed.
Right. That's like the size of a nickel. Right. And the funny thing is, you talk about your husband. My husband tells me that anytime I go shopping and I come back with a story or even through Amazon, I'm justifying.
And he's right.
Whatever. My money too. Okay, so the K2 meter. I want to say KT.
Because it's me.
You're in kindergarten now?
T.
The K2 meter, or EMF, magnetic field ghost hunting detector, or electromagnetic paranormal equipment tester, measures if there is a presence of electromagnetic field or radiation. The Ovis Okay, I get points for actually saying all those big words. The Ovilus actually takes sounds, and based on the list in the machine, it tells you what they are saying.
I'm curious who develops the list of words that gets to go on the machine, because that's pretty limiting to the spirits who are trying to communicate.
Well, and I want to say I couldn't tell you how many, but I think it was quite a few words. But they only get one word. So whatever the sound is just one word.
What if they say multiple words?
They only get one.
Okay. So you need to go in and just be like, look, I just want y'all to know, pick a word, any word, but there's only going to be one freaking word.
And make sure it's important and it's getting your message across. Like run.
Right. Like pray.
Pray.
That's kind of crazy. Who comes up with this stuff?
And how do you know? That's another thing. It's like, how do you know, or how can you measure what a sound, possibly paranormal sound, actually means?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like making me think this is all very controlled. It's a very controlled thing. And I don't know if I like that, because I imagine spirits could say whatever the heck they want.
True.
So are we missing words because the machine doesn't have that word in there?
Like fast? Like run fast? It's very limited. They're limiting the ghost.
Yes, the spirits need to express themselves fully. Okay? I'm sorry, you can't hold back a spirit.
They need a whole sentence.
Yeah. You can't muffle a spirit. No wonder they're pissed.
Right, no wonder they're coming back. So another time, Marines doing some tactical training at the facility in 2006 came across a freezer. After opening it, they discovered mummified body parts. The body parts were estimated to be 30 to 40 years old. They were feet, legs, and brain matter, along with a sealed biohazard bag. A pathologist had stated that they were amputated medical specimens.
So I just realized that you wrote in here, this is from 2006. Okay. Because I was wondering who was amputating things 30 to 40 years ago from now. But I guess this makes a little bit more sense. There's just some mad guy over there in the storage unit just chopping people up.
Down in the tunnels.
Down in the tunnel.
So I believe because this was also a rehabilitation hospital, that they were probably using the feet and the legs to make, what do you call them? Prosthetics?
Prosthetics.
Prosthetics. So that's probably why, because they were specimens. They weren't people just going around hacking parts. They were actual medical specimens.
So they're like casting a mold or something with these body parts?
Could be.
Wow. Interesting.
One night, while on patrol, a law enforcement officer came across a small in stature elderly woman who approached him, which was a surprise because he didn't hear any footsteps. Her face was shrouded by a scarf, so he wasn't able to get a good look at her.
That's your first clue.
Okay. He got out of his car to warn her that the area wasn't safe and offered her a ride. She politely declined and walked away. He returned to his car, and while he was driving away, he glanced in his rearview mirror to see that she was not actually walking, but floating. He turned his car around to get a better look, only to find that she had disappeared. The entire exchange happened at 3 a.m.
Wow. I don't know why, but when you were saying all this, all I could hear in my head was that song, Float, float on, float, float, float on.
Disclaimer, she cannot sing.
Oh, I think they understood that. No disclaimer required.
You do realize this is a podcast. We talk. We don't sing.
Well, I needed to get my point across. Everybody knows that song now that I've sang it. And they're probably wishing I sang it originally now, but what could I do?
Be quiet. Stop talking. Stop singing. Okay. If one...
Float.
I'm going to hurt you bad.
I waited till you started talking.
I'm going to hurt you bad. You do realize that I do the editing.
I know, but you're going to leave that in because it was good.
Yeah, but I'm going to mess up your words.
Oh, please. I can do that all by myself. You don't need to mess any words up for me.
Okay, here we go. If one night wasn't enough, a group visited the asylum 2 nights in a row. Apparently, they didn't get scared enough the first night. After sneaking in the first night and walking around, they heard a large bang, like something heavy was dropped. Needless to say, they hightailed it out of there. The second night, they explored a different area of the asylum to see what they thought was a human shadow. Again, they couldn't get out of there fast enough. Both of these encounters were at 3 a.m.
And this is a totally different group from the other 3 a.m.?
Totally different. Well, the other one was law enforcement. This is actually...
Oh, that's right. Okay. Wow.
A point, thought, or comment, or whatever you want to call it, was raised that the darkest hour or witching hour is at 3 a.m. because it is the opposite time from when Jesus was crucified at 3 p.m. The same person also said that these are demons pretending to be ghosts. I laughed at a rebuttal that someone had said. They commented, all ghosts are not demons, so shut up about it.
Duh, everybody know that.
So I checked into the 3 a.m. theory, and according to the Gospel of Mark, Jesus endured the torment of crucifixion from the 3rd hour between 9 a.m. and noon until his death on the 9th hour, corresponding to about 3 p.m. The 3 p.m. time...
The 3 a.m.
You know what? I'm going to say it.
No, but you have it here. It's wrong.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just rebelling.
You're like, I'm going forward 12 hours. Everybody deal with it.
That's right. My point won't be made, but that's irrelevant. The The 3 a.m. time that Christians commonly call the witching hour stems from when it is believed Christ died. Religious beliefs place his time of death at 3 p.m., and because the devil works in inversions, the witching hour, or the time when we are farthest from the holy power and its supernatural activity is at its greatest, is 3 a.m. Legend typically does not equate the devil with witchcraft, but nevertheless, the two are often linked together.
That's interesting. And 3 is mentioned in the Bible a few times relating to Jesus Christ. Some speculate that only 3 nails were used to crucify him. He died at 3 p.m. and rose in 3 days from the dead. The number 3 is considered divine and perfect, like the Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Wow.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
There you go. You're welcome.
I do have to wonder.
Lord will bless you.
Thank you. But I have to wonder, how do ghosts or demons know what time it is? Do they have a timer on their Apple Watch? There were other strange occurrences. It was witnessed by locals that figures and faces can be seen from the asylum windows. The lights flickering off and on have happened late at night. You know, probably like one of those switches you have in your house that you don't quite know what. You turn it off and on and nothing happens.
I have one of those in my kitchen.
I have one in my living room.
It's just to look pretty.
That's right. Now we need to put a decorative little plate on it, right?
Right.
While walking or driving, some have said they feel like a force is watching them. I know what they mean because when I was walking to my car, I felt the air, everything was heavy. You just
That's
felt
right.
like there were people watching you.
You can feel that stuff. I know this personally. You can feel that stuff.
It seriously sends a chill up your spine.
Yep.
People have speculated that the spirits and paranormal voices.
The Three Stooges voices.
That does sound like Three Stooges.
It does.
Okay.
Sorry, Siri. There's no third person in this podcast.
Oh my god. That was
Siri trying to get some airtime.
Oh my gosh. People have speculated that the spirits and paranormal forces are possibly from the corpses that had washed away in the 1914 flood. While walking the property, 2 sisters were looking at the buildings, windows broken and falling apart, when one sister saw a little girl with brown hair and a dress in the window looking out. Ironically, the sweetest of the sightings is one of a couple that is in one of the deserted rooms. It was reported that they are standing, looking over anyone that passes. Several psychics believe that these souls fell in love at the hospital, but died after the outbreak of polio.
Let me ask you a question. Were children allowed in this asylum?
Yeah, it was for children. It was also a rehabilitation hospital. So
I
yes.
didn't remember you saying that.
Yeah. I do know that several ghost and paranormal hunters, or just people with strong curiosity, have gone to the South Campus property. Most witnessing something, whether it's an actual ghost, presence, forces, entities, or hearing noises. There is something unsettling about that place.
Sounds like it.
When I went there a few years back to take some pictures for my photography class, I do love an old building. I got into the laundry room and walked around. That was the only building I was ever in that didn't give me the heebies. However, on the second floor, the windows were broken and pigeons had taken up residence. I swear I needed a mask and arrows just so. There was I would say about 3 inches thick of pigeon stuff, which I do know is toxic.
That's a hard smell.
Oof. I think one of the strangest things for me, besides what I felt, is that they left everything, including patients' records. Like they just walked away. Since they did build the new property steps away, why didn't they at least take the records with them? It's all very strange.
It sounds to me like they were in a big hurry to get out, and nobody was brave enough to go back.
Although ghost hunters and people that are bored go, it seems like.
Yeah, but the people that were living there are probably not about that.
No.
They were like, we had enough, we're out.
True. They probably witnessed more than they want to say.
The pre-shanker guy, that was pretty crazy.
How it stands now is it's about 50 to 75 acres left. They tore down the laundry building and actually made a sports center in one of the corners. There is a building that is a sheriff's building that they use. The rest of it, I think they're eventually going to do something with and just haven't. It's the county property and just haven't finished doing what they need to do with it or decided what they want to do with it, actually, I think.
Well, even the acres that's left is a pretty big piece of property.
It is.
So, I mean, it's got great potential. But I wonder who's going to come in and build something on there, especially with the haunted stories behind it. Yeah.
You have the urns that that are possibly still there. You have the tunnels that I do believe are still there, plus all the buildings. And there's this giant tree that has roots that go above the street. And they have built like a road around it because the tree is so
interesting.
big.
I wonder if they'll keep that there if they sell the land.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting tree. I do have pictures of that too. I can put that up. But
nice.
And this is where I grew up, and I spent a lot of time down there.
Huh. And no, other than the creepy feelings, no haunted experiences for you?
Well, I didn't go in the buildings other than the auditorium, and that was years and years. And again, we weren't looking.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't spend any time in there. Where a lot of these people that go, they actually walk through the buildings and spend time in there.
Right.
Other than the light being on and having our little practice. Once it was over, we were gone.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not here to meet nobody.
But other than that, no, I never did. But I honestly can say, yes, I had that feeling. You would know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. That feeling of you can't see anything, but you can sure feel it.
Like the little hairs in the back of your neck stand up and you get that little chill.
Yep. And you get very uncomfortable and you can't seem to get yourself out of it. So it's definitely something there.
I would absolutely agree.
All right.
So that's the story of Rancho Los Amigos South Campus.
Nice. I like it. It's pretty interesting. And like you said, very close to home. We'll have to drive by there later.
Fortunately, it's gated off for crazy over here.
Oh, come on. Let's just do it. A little Ouija board. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. I would not do that. I know. I'm not messing with anything like that. That's legit. So, all right. Well, great story.
Thank you.
It's nice to have one's work.
Wow. Okay. I don't know what the deal is today.
All
right, everybody.
All the forces.
Hope you enjoyed that haunted story. Have fun, take care, and let your imaginations, especially with a story like this, run wild.
Bye-bye.
We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little Grimbits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, Twitter at grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook, Grimwit with Dimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.